About Diamond TV. Those that give the right answers win a prize instantly. This is reinvention. Come on now and send that text and win. Channel 99 on GoTV, 110 on Top Star, and on TV Plus Africa. Diamond TV, television reinvented.
Diamond TV, television reinvented.
In 2016, government enacted the Movable Property Security Interest to provide for a registry. The Patents and Company Registration Agency was appointed to house the registry. This act is aimed at providing for the creation of security interests in movable property so as to contribute to economic development, harmonize secure transaction laws, provide for harmonization of conflict of laws in order to promote the financing of international trade and make security interests effective against third parties. I'm Francesca Phiri-Banda, and this is Nightlive. We'll take a break. Welcome back. My guest tonight is Christopher Mapani, the Assistant Registrar of Companies at Patents and Companies Registration Agency, PACRA. And tonight we're discussing Movable Property Registry System, MPRS. Now, those who would like to participate, you can phone or text 0950-936-271. 0950-936-271. You can also get to interact with us on our Diamond TV Facebook page. Welcome to Nightlife.
Thank you so much, Francesca.
Right, now give us a brief background on the MPRS, which is the Movable Property Registry System that PACRA is running.
Yeah, the Movable Property Security Interest Act is an act of Parliament which was enacted in 2016. The objective of this particular statute is to facilitate for the acceptance of movable property as collateral. The background to this is that access to finance has been a challenge for businesses, particularly the small, medium enterprises. Now, the challenge has been compounded by the fact that when they go to a bank or other financial institutions, they'll often be required to provide collateral. By collateral, we just mean security for a loan. And in most cases, financial institutions will require that the collateral takes the form of either a piece of land or a house. But unfortunately, most of our SMEs do not have such types of assets. So what government did is to look at why financial institutions preferred fixed assets as opposed to movable assets, which are readily available. So what this act seeks to do is to address those concerns that financial institutions had as to why they would not accept movable property. By movable property, we are talking about all manner of assets that you can think of. These include motor vehicles. They could be a brand new motor vehicle or a second-hand motor vehicle. It could be farm products. It could be animals. It could be equipment. So government felt that if these SMEs have these assets other than fixed assets, which they could use as collateral, why shouldn't they use those assets? So this particular piece of legislation addresses the challenge of access to credit from three angles. First of all, it creates a registry whereby when a lender lends, they can secure their interest by having them registered with us, PACRA. The other angle from which this challenge is addressed is from the angle of ensuring or providing a mechanism for a lender to determine that the movable asset which is being put up as collateral has not been used for in other transactions. So once you register, you also acquire priority if you are a lender. So meaning that no one else can claim priority over you. The final angle from which it addresses the issue of access to credit is from the angle of enforcement. The Act makes it easy for enforcement. I should be able to go into more details on those particular issues.
Maybe you could just get into details by telling us why the movable property registry system is important in this aspect.
Yeah, I think the importance of the registry should be seen from the point of view of access to finance. They say that finance is the lifeblood of any economy. I mean, if finance is not flowing, even if you have a good idea, you can't realize it. So, people have to borrow. So what this act does, or its importance, is derived from the fact that it now makes it easy for people to borrow. And it's not just businesses, actually, even just as private individuals. The idea is that people should be able to use whatever they have as opposed to relying on fixed assets. When you look at fixed assets, to start with, there's only so much piece of land, for example, that is available. Secondly, not everyone would have such assets. But when you look at the movables, you are likely to have anything. Even you can even use stock if you are an SME, or you can use inventory that you have. Besides, you can also have even a second-hand motor vehicle. The other angle from which this registry is important is that now, if you say you are buying a second-hand motor vehicle, for example, it is actually important that you conduct a search in our registry, because once someone registers in our registry, they acquire a prior claim on that particular asset. So you may be buying an asset which is subject to other party, to third party interest. So just like we do a search on a piece of land, when you're buying a piece of land, the first thing you do is to go to Ministry of Lands to conduct a search. Similarly, if you're buying a second-hand product, come to PACRA, because even for motor vehicles, for example, a third party will no longer have to register with RATSA. But if they want to protect their security interests, they will have to register with us. But I should clarify, I'm not talking about ownership of motor vehicles. Yes, if you want to register to acquire ownership, you have to register with RATSA. But in as far as third-party interests, if you want to secure your third-party interests, previously banks have registered as absolute owners of motor vehicles. But now with this piece of legislation, you don't need to register as an absolute owner with PACRA, with RATSA, but you have to come to PACRA.
So now, having established the importance of MPRS, what have you done to encourage people to use this service?
Yeah, first of all, we realize that unless financial institutions come on board, the objective set for this statute may not be realized. So our starting point has been to engage financial institutions. We have been, first of all, sensitizing them together with the Bank of Zambia. We have been conducting countrywide workshops. Now, on top of that, the Bank of Zambia, in collaboration with the World Bank, has come up with a tailor-made training program where they are trying to build capacity within banks to come up with products around this particular intervention.
So who's eligible to use MPRS, the movable property?
Well, first of all, it's the lenders, because as I said, this piece of legislation addresses the concerns of lenders in the hope that ultimately they'll be able to lend by addressing those issues that I alluded to in my opening remarks. So the users are first of all the lenders, which could be banks or other financial institutions, including microfinance institutions. So the moment they borrow, they are supposed to protect their security interests with us. The hope is that by addressing their concerns, then the risk associated with lending against movables will come down, and alongside that, the interest rates should come down, because one of the factors that are taken into account when pricing the cost of money, which is interest, is the risk associated with that. Francesca, you should be aware that the higher the risk, the higher the return. So if if the risk is too high, financial institutions will price the interest rates exorbitantly. But if you were able to address the risks, then the interest rates should similarly come down. So the hope is that the interest rates will come down, apart from making it easy for SMEs to borrow.
How accessible is the movable property registry system, to would-be users?
It's very accessible, but I must mention that it's purely electronic. It's completely electronic. There are no manual filings. Why? Because we don't want, it's a face-to-file kind of arrangement. So the institution that files first acquires a prior interest. So even we as officers in PACRA, we don't interfere. It's the person that files who acquires a priority interest. Now, I know that people have raised concerns by the fact that it's completely electronic. But the comfort is that, first of all, it is the financial institutions that do register. So, and we expect that they do have facilities to register electronically. For you and I, we can also interact with the registry, but it's mainly by way of conducting searches. If, for example, you borrowed and you had pledged your motor vehicle as collateral, and you have since paid that loan, and you want to verify whether the bank has discharged, you can conduct a search on the website. It's very easy. It can be accessed through our the PACRA website, which is www.pacra.org.zm. It's a very user-friendly database. What I can also add is that for financial institutions, we have been conducting hands-on training. We do have a dedicated team that goes around the banks, the financial institutions, training them on how to utilize this particular registry, and that's what we have been doing the last 1 year.
We're discussing movable property registry system, MPRS, and we're with Mr. Christopher Mapani, who is the Assistant Registrar of Companies at PACRA. So if you do want to participate on the program, you can call us live in studio on 0950 936 271, 0950 936 271. You can also interact with us by sending us messages on our Facebook page, Diamond TV Zambia. We'll take a break. We'll continue right after this. Welcome back. So, since the law came into being 2016, how popular is the MPRS, and what amounts are we talking about locally as well as abroad?
Francesca, I must say that the response has been overwhelming from financial institutions in particular. Although, of course, there's a lot more work to be done. We have seen positive response, particularly from SMEs, from microfinance institutions. They have really come on board. The banks are equally coming on board. We have seen that there is a mind shift. The attitude towards lending against movables is changing. In terms of the value of loans, we are talking about, I don't have exact figures, but we are talking in the millions of dollars. Because what it is that we do collect these statistics on how much has been lent out, and it's in the millions of dollars.
Can any movable property be registered with PACRA? You did mention in the beginning of the program, but if you could just probably stress on that, so that those of anyone who's joined us now can actually get hold of that information?
Yes, in fact, the whole rationale behind this particular statute is that people should use any movable asset that they have. As I said, of course, the common one is motor vehicles.
Motor vehicle, yeah.
But even things like equipment, this camera that you have, if you want to borrow, if Diamond TV wants to recapitalize, you can use, I mean, this is a high value equipment. If you're talking about a company or a farmer.
Yeah, we've seen, even animals can be registered. How can one tell
Yeah,
that a registered animal is the same one?
Well, that
that one
I always
is surrendered in case of default.
I always face that question to say, if I pledge this bull, how do I tell 2-3 months or even years down the line that this is the bull that I pledged? Well, I think those worries are not for you and I. Those worries are for the banks. The banks are trained in that. They know how to handle that. I'm aware that a few of our banks actually do accept animals. But again, it goes back to capacity in the banks. Of course, if a bank does not have the capacity, for example, does no agronomists who understand animals, who can assess whether this animal is worth accepting as collateral, the bank will be reluctant. And that's where this training with Bank of Zambia comes in. First of all, it is imparting skills on how they can handle some of these assets. We believe that part of the reason for the reluctance by banks to accept movable some of these assets is because they don't understand them, and they don't want to trade in unfamiliar grounds or unfamiliar territory. So they would rather stay within their comfort zones. But
Okay,
what
you just hold that for. We do have Brother Sitali from within Lusaka, and he. You are through to Diamond TV. Please go ahead with your comment or question.
Thank you so much. Good evening, panel there.
Brother Sitali, we can hear you. Please go ahead. If we
No,
can
okay,
have some
thank
sound
you.
in the studio.
I just wanted to ask you how that institution or that panel there, how he can help. I know that you are talking about the property, because I've seen that, in Zambia, most of the people, they end up having the property but without the title deed. I don't know how they can assist or how they can help, because you find that the major problem of not even manage to acquire loan, you find because of the title deed. It's very difficult to have a title deed in Zambia. I don't know, organization like that or government, how they can help the people. I think he wants to help some of these people to acquire title deeds. That will be, I think, a good step and a good move for Zambian to acquire a valuable land or any property.
Thank you.
I think that's what my question. I'll hear from the panel there how he's going to answer. I think that is my assessment so far. What I have observed, most of the people, you find that you go to the land, the title deed is very expensive to just acquire title deed.
Let him respond to your question, because we do not.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming through.
Wastali, thank you so much. Indeed, a title deed is critical, particularly if you want to access finance and you want to rely on land. You want to rely on fixed assets. So it's critical. Unfortunately, the focus for the movable property collateral registry is to move away from relying solely on land, but on movable assets. What we are trying to do, Wastel, is to encourage financial institutions to accept other assets other than just land. That's where this particular piece of legislation comes in. We realize that land, yes, Zambia still has a lot of land, but not everyone has a piece of land, and yet they have so many assets that they could utilize. So as much as a certificate of title is critical, we want to have banks relying more on movable property. If you go to the developed countries, you find that you have a ratio of 60 to 40%. 60% reliance on movable assets, perhaps 40 on immovable. But here, probably you're talking about 60, 70% of the lending against movable, against collateral is actually relying on a piece of land. Now, as Mr. Steyer has pointed out, there are so many complications relating to land, and that's why government thought it wise that let's address those shortcomings, the things that discourage the lenders from accepting movable property, so that whoever has movable property should be able to use that as collateral.
You did talk about online registration earlier on, but how are you going to include the people in the rural areas where internet usage is very low?
First of all, as I pointed out, it's the lenders that register. So we expect that even in rural areas, I've been myself to Kasempa and a few other places, they do have facilities to register. But if, for whatever reason, they don't have these facilities, they can access our PACRA offices. And the only unfortunate part is that we are only present at provincial level. PACRA is present in all provincial capitals, including Livingstone and Kitwe. So they can utilize we do have terminals in our offices where they can access. Yes, internet access remains a challenge, although of course access to internet the numbers are improving. But it was a balancing act. On one hand, we want to create a registry which inspires confidence, that even for the financial institutions should be able to have confidence that when they apply, they will have priority if they have lodged first, and that no one will tamper with their lodgements, because the idea is about creating confidence. On the other hand, we have these challenges of access to finance, and we felt that for purposes of providing confidence in the registry, that particularly for financial institutions, we needed to go online, so that if they bring a document, Mr. Mapani should not take it and maybe put it on his shelf, then someone else another bank relies on the same asset and they get registered and you lose out. So those issues are not there, because it's an online registration. You can a bank or other financial institution can register at any time. The moment you click the send button, you get registered. Even the feedback that you receive is electronic. So I would say that so far we haven't received, there hasn't been so much of a complaint. I think actually you may be surprised that even in the remoter parts of this country, access to internet is fairly good. You find that people even have smartphones. So we believe that as much as there could be challenges here and there, but on balance, it is better to have an electronic system for purposes of building confidence in this registry.
Right, you have been watching Nightlive, and we were discussing the Movable Property Registry System, MPRS. I was discussing with Mr. Christopher Mapani, who is the Assistant Registrar of Companies at PACRA. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Francesca Phiri-Banda. Good night.